What's going on, guys? This is VinylicPuma, back with another Fallout 76 video, and today I wanted to talk about a recent gaming news article talking about Fallout 76's mod support. Now, before we start, I'd just like to go ahead and ask that you don't send this article's author any hate, because it's unwarranted and it's generally just not a nice thing to do. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the article in question, which is called Fallout 76 Mod Support Confirmed, Expected to be Cosmetic Only with Strict Moderation. So, the gist of this article is that since Fallout 76 is a multiplayer title, the article's author wonders what restrictions there will be on the game's mod support. After all, unlike previous Bethesda games where you can have mods that alter the game's balance, these may simply not be possible in Fallout 76, as these would likely negatively affect the balance for the online PvP multiplayer. And as you can glean from the article's title, the only mods that would be available would be mods that don't affect game balance, which are traditionally cosmetic mods and maybe a few texture mods. After all, mods that, say, change a player's skills or mods that add new guns and weapons to the game might be blocked due to how it might affect the multiplayer experience. The article also goes on to speculate how Fallout 76's mod support could represent what we saw on consoles, and that perhaps some of the restrictions placed on the console versions of Fallout 4 would be present across all versions of Fallout 76. So for example, you might only have 2 GB of available space for all of your mods on the PC, Xbox One, and PS4 versions of Fallout 76. As always, if you want to check out the article yourself, it will be linked in the video's description. Now, on some level, what the article's author is saying here makes some sense, and may actually be backed up by what Todd originally said about Fallout 76 mods during his interview with Geoff Keighley during this year's E3, which is roughly as follows. We love mods, and so we are 100% committed to doing that in 76 as well. We will not be able to do that at launch, though. Our goal at launch, and this is really new for us, is to have a well-running, robust service. And then some period later, we're currently still designing what that service looks like, you'll be able to have your own private world and be able to mod it and do all of that. We think that with our games, that's where the long-time life of them really is. That is trickier when you get into an online world, but we're definitely committed to that, it just won't be at launch. Now, what I think is so confusing about what Todd said is how this particular quote is being interpreted. On the one hand, a lot of news outlets have reported that Fallout 76 is going to have private servers, and with private servers, it stands to reason that you're going to be able to mod them any way you want. In fact, I think it would be a very good idea for Bethesda to do this, as I could see a number of mods, particularly ones that restrict PvP, add NPCs, as well as mods that add things like custom gear and other weapons being quite popular. At the same time, Todd never said that Fallout 76 was going to have private servers. The precise terminology he used was private world, and I think there is a pretty big distinction between a private game world and a private game server. In the case of a game like Minecraft, the original PC or Java edition allows the player to host their own private servers where they can mod the game as much as they want, and you can join someone else's game provided that you have the same mods installed. However, Java Edition and newer versions of Minecraft make use of a service known as Minecraft Realms, which is server-side and doesn't appear to allow mods at all. So in a sense, with Minecraft Realms, you can have your own private world, but you have little or limited control over what you can actually do in that world. As this pertains to Fallout 76, it sounds like you'll be able to have a private world for the game, but not necessarily a private server. After all, Fallout 76 has been confirmed as having always online DRM, and while Todd specifically says you'll be able to have mods for your private world, there will likely be restrictions on what types of mods will be available. Not to mention that this even seems to be echoed later by Todd himself, where he says, "We think that with our games, that's where the long-term life of them is. That is trickier when you get into an online world, but we're definitely committed to that, it just won't be at launch." The fact that Todd says it will be trickier on its own implies that there will be at least some mod restrictions for Fallout 76. And while we can't say what those restrictions are or even how severe they will be, we may be able to get some insight into what Fallout 76's mod support will look like based on how modding works for the console versions of Fallout 4. Unlike Fallout 4 on PC, the console versions require the use of Bethesda.net's modding client, which has its own set of restrictions. For example, mods on console can't exceed 2 GB of storage, and as you can imagine, this greatly limits what mods are possible. In fact, certain mods like HyperX's RU-556 assault rifle clock in at about 250 GB, which is practically an eighth of your total allocated space for mods. There's also the fact that Sony in particular has straight up blocked new assets for the PS4 versions of the game. So for example, unlike Fallout 4 on PC or Xbox One, where the players can run custom assets, this is simply not available on the PS4 version, and most PS4 mods are created using existing assets in creative ways. Granted, cool things can certainly come out of that, but a big part of what makes modding Bethesda's games great is the ability to potentially use your own custom assets. As all of this pertains to Fallout 76, it's possible that we could get mods, however, there might be limitations for how many mods can be installed in your own private world. Or in the case of what we currently see on the PS4 version of Fallout 4, modding could be limited to assets that are featured in the vanilla game and its DLC. After all, if Fallout 76 is always online, wouldn't they block you from running some kind of third-party code? Assuming the best case scenario and you can make your own custom assets in Fallout 76, I think I could definitely see mods being restricted solely to Bethesda.net and the Bethesda.net launcher, which would be unfortunate for those of us on PC that definitely prefer to use Nexus Mod Manager. If that's the case, hopefully we aren't limited to a certain amount of allocated hard drive or server space for mods, and we also aren't limited to using solely vanilla and DLC assets. Something else I think we have to consider when it comes to Fallout 76's mods is how Fallout 76 is supposedly going to support itself based on microtransactions. With this in mind, I doubt Bethesda would allow mods that would interfere or potentially compete with said microtransactions. Now, it is worth noting that Bethesda is on record saying that Fallout 76's microtransactions will be cosmetic only, and at least for now, we have no reason to believe that this still isn't the case. At the same time, I think I could definitely see a situation occurring where you're limited to the amount of size you can allocate for mods, but the amounts of microtransaction content you could purchase and download would be infinite. To be fair, that is speculation on my part, but it is worth mentioning that to this day, Xbox One users playing Fallout 4 are still restricted to 2 GB of space, yet Creation Club is updated fairly regularly. In Bethesda's defense, maybe it's Microsoft's fault that Fallout 4 players aren't getting more space for mods. After all, it was Sony's decision to block custom assets for Fallout 4 and Skyrim, so who knows. What I will say is that I hope Bethesda doesn't gimp mods to help promote microtransactions, as that would definitely upset a lot of the fandom surrounding Bethesda's games. I also think that it would break the promise of how Todd Howard said that they were 100% committed to having mods in Fallout 76. At the end of the day, I think it's pretty safe to say that there are going to be some amount of restrictions on modding for Fallout 76. After all, Todd does seem to imply that allowing mods for an online game is going to be trickier to do than it would be with a standard single-player Bethesda Game Studios RPG. At the same time, while you may not be able to create something like Enderall in Fallout 76, I don't see why you couldn't disable PvP features, disable weapon durability, and maybe even create a few custom NPCs, quests, and weapons that inhabit your own custom private world. Then maybe you could get a friend or two to join you, and then you could take on some quests together, you could build together, and do whatever else you want. As I think even Todd Howard would admit, giving your players the ability to dictate their own experience is a big part of why Bethesda's games are so popular, and on some level, I think the community's fear over losing the ability to dictate their own experience fuels a lot of the concern, worries, and fears for Fallout 76. With that in mind, I think if Bethesda somehow comes across this video, which they probably won't, it might be a good idea to come out whenever you guys are ready and tell us what Fallout 76 mod support will entail and what the feature set will be. Because I do think if a lot of people end up purchasing Fallout 76 and then later discover that mods are limited to, say, cosmetics, then a lot of people are going to be upset. Hopefully, we'll be able to get a team together and hunt down Thomas the Tank Engine in Fallout 76, but until we know more, guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. Are you concerned about Fallout 76's mod support? Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, like this video if you liked it, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, thank you all so much for supporting the channel, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.